makes me feel like a man.
You want every team to lose any other game? Sorry. Bailey Zappi just did another dime. You know what? Whoa, time out. Are you kidding? That's what I'm gonna try to drop a mic. Welcome to the Warner Brothas Podcast. My name is Keenan, joined by my brother Kyle, joined by Branndon, joined by Timmy. Hey guys, how are you? How are you all?
I'm great.
Yeah, I'm phenomenal.
Keenan, you seem a little tense. Everything okay? You good?
Yeah, we're great. You know, we were just having conversations before pod that, you know, just there are certain conversations in sports that get me very upset, and this is one of them that we're gonna have later on today. But Branndon, how are you? You're doing good.
Yeah, doing good, doing great.
It's great to see. It's great to hear. So obviously, the Super Bowl rematch is set from 2019-2020 season, or 2018-2019 season. We got the 49ers seeing the good old Kansas City Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. We're having questions. Each of us do have questions. Who wants to start? I know we each have things that we're looking to ask, kind of things to dive into. Who wants to start? Who wants to bring whatever they want to up right now?
I mean, I could start.
Go for it.
It depends. Like, I don't know if you guys have basic questions. I mean,
Just start with whatever. We'll bounce around. We'll go.
Yeah.
this is like quickest start in Warner Brothas Podcast history, possibly. Let me ask you guys this. Between the two games, between the Ravens loss and the Lions loss, which do you think is the worst loss? We'll start with Tim.
Definitely. I mean, the Lions loss hurts just because they definitely could have not been in that situation. But the Ravens, to me, have a worse loss just because they just looked like they couldn't function at all. Like, really at all during that game. They had that nice touchdown at the beginning. And then after that, it was just deep shot after deep shot. They didn't run the ball. I think they said they rushed 6 times. This is the best rushing offense in the league, and they rushed 6 times. They got completely away from their identity. They put it all on Lamar's shoulders, and Lamar just couldn't get over the hump. Multiple mistakes by defensive players, cheap shots on Mahomes resulting in first downs that cost them. Zay Flowers taunting cost them. Then the fumble really cost them. Just so many mistakes. To me, that's the bigger thing. We can kind of put the Lions loss on really one thing, just going for it on fourth, and they should have kicked the field goal and, been able to tie it. But with the Ravens, there was just so many things that I did not like when I watched that football game.
Patty.
Branndon, you?
Yeah, I'm going to agree with Tim with the Ravens. Pretty much everything Tim said is exactly what I was going to say. I think it was definitely in terms of expectations, because I think we can all agree that Detroit wasn't really supposed to be here. Baltimore would be in the number 1 overall seed, being favored in Baltimore. I agree. There was a lot of mental miscues, a lot of stupid penalties. Them getting away from the running game was questioning, and I saw something today, and it was going from week 1. It was like every week from, I want to say week 8 or week 9, their rushing attempts per game just slightly decreased, and then they got to the playoffs and they started passing more, which is not the offense that Baltimore's traditionally ran. The defense played pretty decent the second half. But, I mean, just really mental miscues from Zay Flowers with the taunting, fumbling the ball, Lamar Jackson throwing into triple coverage, which was highly questionable. The bad pocket awareness on the strip sack. So I really honestly think Kansas City kind of was begging Baltimore to win that game. Was pretty much serving it to them on a silver platter, and Baltimore had it there for the taking, but they just couldn't do it.
Yeah, I agree with you. So I've got a little bit more, nuance. I think that it's in the short term more devastating for the Ravens, and the long term more devastating than the Lions. I don't know how many more times possibly the Lions will get back to that spot, and you're up 24-7 at the half against a 49ers team who has been reeling over the last couple weeks. Obviously, they had the loss to the Ravens. They had the loss to the Rams, but they didn't start their starters. Obviously, they beat the Commanders, I believe, in that in that stretch there, or the either Commanders or the Cardinals, one of the two. But then they obviously had a tough win against the Packers where they didn't look great, and then they didn't look great in the first half. You're up 24-7. That's one that you want. That one's going to sting for a while, and knowing Detroit, their luck, their history, maybe Dan Campbell, and that's all they've turned it around, but their division's getting tougher. The NFC might going to get tougher. They might be getting one of the best young quarterbacks in the league here shortly, or coming into the league here shortly, I should say. So we'll see. But then in the short term, though, absolutely is the Ravens. This was a team that a lot of people, once the playoffs had started, was like, this is the best team in the league, including myself. I thought this was the best team in the league. They should be in the Super Bowl. They should win the Super Bowl. And they laid an egg, and it was because of them. It wasn't because Mahomes – first quarter Mahomes is one of those things like, man, that's too good. Like, he was special in the first quarter, first half even for the most part. Second half, the defense held them to nothing. It was just stupid, as we said, stupid penalties, fumbles, stupid turnovers, stupid mistakes, and the not giving the ball to Odell and not having him featured in your game plan, the most clutch receiver, the receiver who has been in Super Bowls, has played in the Super Bowl, played in playoff games, big playoff games. I mean, he made the big fourth down catch. He started to get going on that drive a little bit. I don't know what took him all game to get there. Like, that's why you bring him in. That's why he's there, to make those plays, to be a figure like that. And then it comes down to Lamar. Lastly, we saw Josh Allen, 1 read, 2 read, head, go. We saw Brock Purdy in the second half against the Lions, 1 read, 2 read. I don't have it. I can scramble and get these yards. Like, Lamar, you're the most electric quarterback running arguably ever. It's you or Michael Vick, whatever. Maybe Randall Cunningham for your older people. But, like, you're one of the most electric running quarterbacks ever. Take off. If you need 150 yards to win the game, run for 150 yards. We've seen you run for 100 in the playoffs before. You've done it 3 other times. Run. You don't have to win with your arm. Win with your legs, because that's what makes you Lamar Jackson. Without your legs, you are a pretty good quarterback. With your legs, you are a 2-time MVP. You should have utilized them more, but that's me. So I think the Ravens short-term, Lions maybe long-term, because I don't know how many more times they see this within the next 20 years.
You know what? I'll answer Keenan's first. I mean, I agree with everything all 3 of you said. I would say the Lions are pretty set up in the short term.
Like, I think they should be, but it's tough. Even
if they get bounced out, their defense is going to improve. That offense isn't going to get any worse, right? Like, maybe some injuries, but they're pretty well stocked. Like, their question will be, will they win the division with Green Bay, the Vikings, and the Bears? Who knows? But Green Bay's for sure going to be there. But they at least look like they're going to be in the mix. They got the coach. They got the offense. Question is, will they have the defense? And I guess you got to worry about if Dan Campbell's going to go for it on 4th. That's not.
And you have the play. And you have the play calling. Yes. And Ben Johnson's going to be leaving probably. Sorry to interrupt, but Ben Johnson's leaving too. Yeah. We saw obviously what Shane Steichen. Leaving for Jalen Hurts this year and how much that affects him. Even the Chiefs losing Eric Bieniemy, obviously you have Andy Reid, so that kind of makes up for it. But the Chiefs' offense didn't look the same this year compared to last year, and they had the same personnel. So
they don't have good weapons, though. I'll say the Lions.
But they had the same weapons last year. No, I'm just meaning I'm just meaning the offensive coordinator, how much that can mean, and taking that away from you. But the Lions have great weapons, but it's more like the Eagles. The Eagles still have great weapons. They just didn't have the same offense, partially on Jalen Hurts and how the team's playing, partially Shane Steichen not being there, the play caller. But go on.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing with you there. Goff's just a better quarterback than Jalen Hurts, so I think he's going to adapt to whatever OC. And who knows, maybe they promote from within the building. I get what you're saying, but they just got so many weapons, whether it's in the backfield, whether it's their receivers, tight end, great offensive line. So I'm not necessarily too worried about the Lions. I mean, the Ravens, to me, it's like, if not now, then when? I'm almost more worried about them in the long term, even though Lamar is going to keep improving, I would think. I mean, this was one of their better health years, and they were still pretty banged up, and they still dominated the league. So, I mean, let me get to that Ravens loss. Completely agree with everything you guys said. The dumb penalties, the Chiefs were dying to lose. They did nothing in the second half, aside from that last play on 3rd and 9, to really seal the victory at all. They couldn't even get to the red zone. It is going to be a great matchup with San Francisco, but I can't lie. I mean, I really do think San Francisco is a much better team than them. I really can't believe, as we're sitting here today, that the Chiefs are there. If you want to tell me Mahomes played the way he did in that first quarter, first half, all the way through, then cool. Then I'm cool with the 1.5 point line in the Super Bowl. Then I'm cool with everyone being like, hey, can't worry about these guys. But I can't imagine if, the Niners even play the game they played yesterday where they fall behind. I can't imagine the Chiefs can hold up to that. I just can't. But, back to the Ravens. Keenan, you talk about featuring Odell more. I wish they featured Lamar more. I wish they would just call Lamar's number. That's a different game. Of course, we can all sit here and say, that Zay Flowers play at the goal line, that goes in. That's a different player. If he just doesn't fumble and they get the ball at the one, that's a different ball game. But I was so disappointed. I mean, 6 run calls. Lamar seemed tight. Harbaugh seemed to have no control over his team. I would not have expected that from a John Harbaugh team, someone who's been been a head coach for double-digit years. Just so uncharacteristic. I don't even know who that team was yesterday. And if it sounds like I'm disappointed and don't want to see the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, it's because I don't. This was not a fun team to watch this year, the Chiefs. I thought they were the better team in the first half for sure. And once again, the second half, the Ravens just shit the game away. They just threw up all over themselves. It was pathetic to watch. The Clowney penalty. I thought the Van Noy penalty was bullshit. I thought that was very much here you go, Chiefs. But the Clowney roughing the passer, I think there was a couple other roughing the passers, if I remember correctly. The Zay Flowers taunt, the Zay Flowers fumble, obviously. The Ravens did it to themselves. So I think that was the worst loss. The Lions, at least, you had one of the best offenses in the Niners, getting the ball in the second half and having room to work with. And they had to do the work on defense. They had to force the fourth down stops. They had to do all that. So, the Lions lost in a way I'd expect them to lose, honestly. I said it was probably going to come down to some Dan Campbell fourth downs. That's seemingly what it came down to. Obviously, that call on 3rd and 1 at the goal line, that was pretty terrible when they probably should have thrown the ball. Or if you're going to run the ball there, put your jumbo package in and not run it with your base package. So, Lions being a young team, you kind of expect that from them. Ravens, that was pathetic. I am still disappointed as we speak. I'm sure you can hear it in my voice, but that was a pathetic game. I expected much more out of the Ravens.
Yeah, I agree. Long term too, I just want to kind of speak on me saying that. You're right in the sense of it's only the thing you can think of is just because it is the Lions and that's what you get the feeling of. But again, if you're just going off of personnel and what the divisions are saying, you're right. The Lions are a better setup right now than the Ravens just because division with Burrow, you got Josh Allen, you got Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert now just has Jim Harbaugh. You've got Trevor Lawrence, you've got who should come back to being even a better player and obviously with a better team, hopefully. You've got C.J. Stroud. Anthony Richardson could be something. Tua could be still something, especially if you get a whole run through Miami, which could happen. Like, there's just so much talent in the AFC.
Let the Steelers get a quarterback,
I was about to say, let the Steelers get a quarterback. Let the Browns get a true quarterback. We saw what happened when they had a good Flacco who was still turning the ball over. What happened with that without Nick Chubb? So let the Browns get a quarterback. Obviously, don't let New England be good. Like, don't let New England be good, please. Like, there's just too much. Like in the AFC, it really is just the Titans. I don't have faith in next year, and the Broncos probably. But the Broncos even maybe, but like really, it's just them and the Raiders as of this moment in time. Like I don't have faith in those two teams. Other than that, you could tell me anything about every team. I have to wait for the offseason. But next question. Anybody want to go? Timmy, I know you said you had a couple. You want to start with one?
Well, I only really have one. I have another one, but it's really not anything to do with the playoffs at all.
Okay.
And then the one that you know about is going to get you hot. So if you want to wait till the end, we can do that.
Yeah, if that's the only one you have, then sure, I'll ask a question.
Okay.
If you're going to just ask stupidity, then yeah, I'll ask a question. Bill, speaking of, so I went into this game saying that this could be the most impressive Mahomes run, and this might be the most impressive Mahomes win of his career if he does win this game. Do you guys feel like this is the most impressive win of Patrick Mahomes' career?
I'll start.
Yep.
Absolutely not. Just because of exactly what I said in this last question. No, the Ravens just threw that game away. If you tell me the Chiefs like step on the Ravens' necks in the second half, then yes. I thought it was a great win against Buffalo in Buffalo, right? That's a tough win anywhere. The first game, obviously, with the Dolphins, you favor the Chiefs, but they did what they had to do. They big boyed them, you know. They acclimated to the weather in a way that the Dolphins could not. This game, again, first half, great. First half, absolutely. I've never seen Mahomes look so comfortable this season. You could just tell in his body language. He was completely comfortable to be in the AFC Championship game. You could tell Lamar was not the most comfortable there. Not that he looked shaky the entire game, but definitely looked shaky more than Mahomes. But that second half, the Ravens, even despite the dumbass penalties on defense, still found stop after stop after stop against the Chiefs. And Keenan, I told you on live take yesterday, it very much reminded me of the Patriots this season,
Shout out
where the defense held everybody. They were in games they shouldn't have been, just strictly from the defense, and the quarterback couldn't get it done. And in this case, it wasn't just the quarterback; it was the entire team with the turnovers, with the penalties, XYZ, right? So, no, I didn't find this game particularly impressive. You want to tell me the first half? Sure, yeah, he took control of that game. He took control of his team in a way Lamar did not take control of the game. Second half, no, the Ravens just absolutely just pissed that game away. Threw up on themselves, shit on themselves, whatever you want to call it, all the body fluids. That's what the Ravens did. I thought it was a pathetic showing by them. Props to the Chiefs. They did what they had to do, but they sat on the ball in the second half. Absolutely just sat on the ball. So I was impressed with the first half. Overall game, wasn't too impressed.
Timmy, how about you?
I agree with Kyle. I definitely wouldn't say this is like the best win. I mean, it's really hard to say a game that they only scored 17 points can be considered their best win, especially when in the first quarter they looked like they knew exactly what they were doing. They knew exactly how to win, how to beat them. It really just came down to, can our defense make something? And it kind of worked. It kind of, because of the Ravens, just, mental mistakes and whatnot. I definitely wouldn't say this is his best win, but it's definitely a good win. I mean, number one seed, great defense. They were able to overcome it. So,
all right, Branndon, you?
Yeah, I agree. I don't think it's his best win or Kansas City's best win. Same reason why as Tim and Kyle. Just based off the fact that in the second half they really couldn't do anything. A lot of drives stalled out. A lot of drives were 3 and out. Might have had a first down here or there, but again they'd stall out. I also think I agree with what Kyle said. I think it has to do more so with what Baltimore didn't do. Because I genuinely do think that if you took Baltimore's defense in the second half, and let's say Baltimore played like that the whole game, and they got decent production out of their offense, I don't know if that game's close. I really don't. If Lamar's able to hit a couple throws, if Baltimore maybe doesn't commit the stupid penalties, if Zay Flowers doesn't fumble the ball, I don't think Kansas City wins that game. Obviously they did, and this is all hindsight, but I think in terms of the whole game, I don't really think it was his best body work. I'd argue the Buffalo game from years ago, and that sparked the whole overtime conversation. It's probably his best win, if not one of his best wins.
Sure.
So for me, this is top 3 because I didn't. This is probably one of the first few games from Mahomes that I thought I don't know how he's winning this game, and he did. Regardless of how the game went on, I understand that he played better. He outplayed Lamar. Clearly, that wasn't really too hard to do. But I did not think that the Chiefs were winning this game against the Ravens. I'm still surprised that they did win the game. Obviously, it came down to the Ravens not doing stuff rather than the Chiefs fully doing stuff offensively in the second half. But I mean, he did make throws in the first half. He did put them in a position to where they didn't have to do much. So it is up there for me in his most impressive wins. It's top 3. With the Bills win 42-36 overtime, obviously the 13 seconds to get into field goal range. That one's an all-time classic. And then I think last year's Super Bowl winning 38-35 against an Eagles team, that is a more talented roster than your roster for sure was, especially an Eagles team that had a great coaching staff, Jalen Hurts playing at an MVP level. I understand there was the call at the end of the game, but still Mahomes played a phenomenal game, and they won 38-35. So those are his 3 most impressive
I got to push back on that. Let me ask everybody here. Give me a letter grade on Lamar's performance yesterday.
I'd say, for me, a D.
I was going to say D plus.
I would say anywhere. I think he played a C level regular season game, but for the playoff game, he played a D.
I'd go D. I'd go a D minus.
What about Harbaugh? What would you give him for a letter grade yesterday? Well, we can call it coaching staff. We can call it Harbaugh and Monken, the OC.
I'd give the coaching staff an F.
I was going to say F as well.
I think the coaching staff was abysmal, and that grade's catered more towards Todd Monken because the fact that it just baffles me that you run 6 running plays, and then the other thing that I was kind of scratching my head about after the game too was I think Lamar only had one designed run, and that was the one where he broke it off where he could have taken it to the house, but he slowed up. Looked like he was worried about L'Jarius Sneed or somebody behind him. But I mean, the play calling was terrible. I get Mark Andrews was coming off an injury. He wasn't really featured. We already talked about Odell not being featured. And all the deep shots. I mean, it's 2nd and 10 and you're throwing 30, 40 yards downfield to Nelson Aguilar and Rashad Bateman, and you've got guys that are coming open across the field. And you're playing against a team knowing that they take away your wide receivers. They have a good corner. They take away receivers, so why not use your backs? Like you did the drive where they featured Justice Hill for 3 or 4 plays out of the backfield, and then you just go away from it. So it was baffling to me. I think it's an F, a miserable failure on the coaching staff.
You added both, so I say D. Okay. Offensive coordinator F. I'd say give John Harbaugh about a D to a C. I'd say overall D.
That's exactly why I cannot even deem this win impressive. I think last week's win is more impressive, going toe to toe with Allen when we know the Bills' offense was clicking to some degree. It has the ability to be explosive. I would have thought last week's game would have been more so like this week's game, a low-scoring game where they eke it out. This one, I mean, no part of the Ravens that we know from this season showed up. Not one. Not a single part of it. And again, it was literally the first half. So I can't say I don't want to make it seem like I'm hating on the Chiefs. I don't want to make it seem like I'm just completely downplaying it. But I kind of am. I kind of am downplaying it because they gave one good half of football. That second half, the Lions would have killed them. That second half, that's a Super Bowl. The Niners damn sure would have killed them. Last week's Bills would have killed them. Whatever.
You don't think that changes if they actually see the Ravens scoring?
What's that?
You don't think that they could have turned it on or gotten a drive out of themselves if they knew they had to?
I Ravens do. Or the Chiefs.
The Chiefs.
Sure, they could have, but they didn't. They didn't. You need that drive all the time in the playoffs. You need that the whole entire second half. They knew they had to keep their foot on the gas, and they were genuinely trying. The Ravens were helping them. The Chiefs still couldn't even get it to their 30-yard line. So, no, I really was not impressed. Again, that first half, I'm with you. That first half, I'm like, shit, Mahomes has control of this game. He looks comfortable. The Ravens are in for a long day. And that second half, it was back and forth. Just here, I don't want it. Chiefs didn't want it. Ravens didn't want it. Maybe if Zay Flowers scores, maybe we can have a different conversation. But they didn't. They threw up on themselves there with that play. No, the Chiefs I saw yesterday will get killed by the 49ers. And the Chiefs, as we sit here, one thing's not going to change about the Chiefs. They still only have Mahomes, Pacheco, and Kelsey that are really doing anything and Rashid Rice. You got 4 players. That's it. Mahomes has got 3 guys to go to. I don't know. Maybe my opinion will change in 2 weeks, but I really don't see a way for the Chiefs to show up offensively against the Niners. The Niners are going to put up at least 25, I would think. It's going to be a dome. It's going to be good weather. There's not going to be no rain. So I can't picture the Chiefs competing with the Niners at this moment right now from what I saw yesterday.
We'll talk about that more on, but I completely disagree with you on that. But
they look like I don't know how you can. I'm not
because you just talked about them last week against Buffalo. They put up 27 and they could have put up easily 34.
Maybe they did, but the Niners got a better defense, and
they've got They got a worse defense than they've got a worse defense than the Ravens and a little better defense than the Bills. The way they're playing is pretty comparable with the Bills.
And we saw them put the clamps a little bit on the Lions yesterday. Forced
Clamps?
turnovers.
No, they made bad.
In that second half. Well, like, what are the Chiefs going to do in that situation? If they give up the ball twice, they're not going to be able to play.
I don't
the
know
Niners
if they
can
give
at
up
least
the ball
turn you
twice.
over. What happened?
I don't know if they give up the ball twice though.
But the Niners have showed you they can at least turn you over. Is my point.
Yeah, so have the Ravens. The Ravens took the ball away from everybody this year.
They sacked They didn't do anything yesterday. Like that. That's what I'm saying. That's a Ravens loss more than the Chiefs win. That's all. That's my point here.
And the Bills took the ball away more than almost every other team this season too, and they didn't take the ball away from the Chiefs other than McCole Hardman thinking he's cool, but like McCole Hardman just shouldn't touch the ball. So
yeah,
like,
that's
I think
true.
I'm just saying I think if you just don't have him touch the ball, I think they're perfectly fine. I'm just saying I think the Chiefs can rise.
If we're going off the first two games, cool, but I don't know how you can look at yesterday and say like
because the first two games happened this year. That's why. I mean, they beat the Ravens. They did what they needed to do to beat the Ravens. We'll talk obviously more about this in depth. I'm just saying they did what they needed to do to beat the Ravens. I think that they have a chance to beat the 49ers.
Can we also, and I want Tim and Brandon to get in on this too, can we also agree they had a significant advantage against Miami with the weather? They had a 2-day rest advantage against Buffalo that they would not have had prior. That's also fair.
They would have had it just a day, but I mean – I'm not going to say they lost the game because the Bills didn't have 24 more hours of recovery body.
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying they had an advantage of both games.
Yeah, and they had a disadvantage. I mean, they were going on the road to Baltimore. I mean, the Baltimore laid an egg, sure, but I mean they knew what they were going against, and we never know what the 49ers are going to do.
I don't know how
we
you
watched
say
the
that
49ers.
Shit was impressive yesterday. That's all I'm saying.
It wasn't cool because I didn't think they were going to win, and they did. I prefaced it by saying the Ravens didn't play a great game, but I did not going into that game. I did not think the Chiefs were winning. Leaving the game, the Chiefs won. I'm already impressed by that already because they found a way to win regardless.
I don't think that's finding a way to win. I don't think it's finding a way to win when you got penalties and just bad football.
Did they win or lose?
They won, but it was bad football from the Ravens.
They found a way to win regardless.
Tim, am I saying the wrong thing here? Was that not bad, terrible football by the Ravens yesterday?
I actually agree with Kyle where he's saying the Chiefs didn't necessarily win the game. The Ravens just lost the game. Because if you're asking me right now, how many points are the Chiefs scoring on the Ravens this weekend? I would have definitely said probably 15 to 20 something. And if you're telling me that's all they need to win, I'm going to say, okay, then they didn't really do a lot to win if they only got 17 points. And then you also made a point earlier, Keenan, you said, if they needed to score, they would have. They had a 10-point lead for 20-something minutes in this game. They needed to score the entire second half. They needed at least 3 points here, 3 points there, and they could not do anything.
They needed a third and 9. They needed a third and 9. They got the third and 9. As they saw, the Ravens weren't playing great. All they needed to do, I've seen this plenty of times. Don't turn the ball over. Field position game. Your defense is playing very well. Don't put the ball in harm's way. They did all of that.
So
That's impressive, though.
They did need to do that, but they needed to do that against the Dolphins. And the way they did it against the Dolphins was kill the clock, go down in the red zone, get some field goals. And they did the same thing. It was 2 touchdowns and then a bunch of field goals. And that's a little bit more of an impressive game because at least they could get to the red zone. This one was 1 field goal, 2 touchdowns, and then they just couldn't do anything further than that. They couldn't get into the red zone. They couldn't get into field goal territory. When they did, then there was problems. It was less impressive than the Dolphins.
We all picked the Ravens to win the game. The
We're
Chiefs
just some
won
chums.
the game.
That'll make it impressive. That was terrible. We all agreed that was a terrible loss on the Ravens' part.
The Ravens crumbled.
The
Chiefs didn't flourish. The Chiefs played a Chiefs game, and they just came out because the Ravens didn't do a damn thing.
I can't sit here and say the number 1 team in the league underperformed, and that was a top 3 most impressive win in the Mahomes era.
If the Chiefs win 17-10 against the 49ers, I'm not saying that's impressive either. I'm going to say, what the hell did the 49ers do?
I would be impressed with a defensive battle if they stopped the Niners. Ravens stopped themselves.
Well, I wouldn't say it's a Mahomes feat. It's a
Lamar
defense.
threw a bad pass, but I mean, Yeah. So you're saying that you were impressed with the Chiefs' defense just barely? Is that
No,
what
I
you
wasn't
just
even
said?
impressed with them. That's why I'm saying this win is.
I'm disappointed in the Ravens.
I'm disappointed. Yeah.
Okay.
There was nothing.
That's-
There was nothing about that the Chiefs did yesterday. Again, aside from that first 30 minutes, aside from that, did that look like a championship team to me? No, it did not. It absolutely did not.
Okay.
They were dying to lose that game to the Ravens. Absolutely. If you're telling me Mahomes is getting every third down, blah blah blah, like Brady against the Chiefs when he went to Arrowhead, that was one of the most impressive wins of the Brady era. This one,
Of course.
again, I'll say
Of
it
course
again.
that was-
Ravens just shit all over themselves. Brandon, I'll let you go. My fault. I'm talking way too much here.
Yeah, so I'm going to give Mahomes and Kansas City credit as much as it pains me. Anybody that knows me, I'm not a fan of Kansas City at all. I was talking to Kyle majority of the game. We were kind of going back and forth on it, and I don't know, like he just didn't. To me, it's like I can think of like I get it, like it's his first time on the road, in the playoffs and all that good stuff, and we all picked Baltimore to win. A lot of America had Baltimore winning. I think if you're going to give credit to anybody on Kansas City, it's got to be the if you're going to, it's got to be the defense. But then
the
again,
defense,
like
absolutely.
it's hard to give
Deserves it.
that much credit because, like, I really do think that Baltimore shot themselves in the foot. And then there's the whole other topic. You open up a whole new can of worms with some of the questionable calls. I didn't agree with the unnecessary roughness on Kyle Van Noy. Whatever. I think it should have been maybe offsetting, if you're going to call that. There was also, there was a play that I was watching. It was on the Kelsey touchdown. Juwan Taylor literally has, I think it was Clowney or somebody wrapped up by the throat. That's another missed call. You've got the offensive lineman. I don't remember if it was the rough in the passer or what it was. I think it was before that. You've got another offensive lineman holding literally a D lineman to the ground. You've got the Isaiah Likely play where there was an obvious hold on the throwaway that wasn't called. I've seen people go back and forth about the whole triple coverage throw, just because the fact that the defender got there early. It's a bang play. Don't know if you could really call that.
Especially
coverage. That's if it's single coverage, I think that gets called, or maybe even double coverage, but triple coverage, I think that's kind of hard to justify. But I wasn't impressed. I was more so disappointed with Baltimore because the fact that Baltimore could have won that game. Baltimore should have won that game.
Yes.
And obviously it's tough to say that because they didn't. Obviously they didn't win the game.
They played terrible. Yeah, I'm just saying.
They played terrible. I'm not going to sit here and discount Kansas City. Obviously Kansas City wins, but I don't think Kansas City did anything spectacular.
Let me ask you all this. Not to cut you off, but let me ask you all this. We gave Baltimore a letter grade. Give me coaching staff. I would give an A for the Chiefs. Let's start there. But just game overall, Chiefs game. You give it a what?
B minus.
B plus because the defense
B
played
minus,
pretty
B?
solid.
I think the defense played an A minus. I think the offense played about a B minus. I think so. Actually, probably still about a B, 86.
Yeah,
Because I'd give the defense about a B because we didn't even see them really get tested via offense or via rushing, and like you guys said, it was just a completely different game plan. I didn't think the Chiefs were even holding them either. That's the thing. I thought the Ravens were just not playing their game at all. It was just ugly all around. Keep going, Brandon. My fault.
No, you're good. So it's I wasn't really impressed because Mahomes came out in the first half and he was dealing. That opening drive was pretty. That was a nice opening drive, and then the touchdown pass to Kelsey, that was a nice touchdown. And then after that they kind of start cluttering out a little bit. And I think you kind of really saw as the game went on the deficiencies of the Kansas City offense. With a lack of other playmakers, MVS had the great play to seal the game at the end. But the whole second half, Rashee Rice was having trouble getting open. Travis Kelce kind of got phased out a little bit by Colin Hamilton and the linebackers. So like I said, I think it's more so of Baltimore shooting themselves in the foot. Obviously, like I said, I give Kansas City credit. But, I mean, I don't think they did anything spectacular.
Kyle, so do you have another question? Next question?
That's it. That's it for right now.
So you don't have it? No, I mean, you don't have anything right now, so you want me to go on with another one, or does anyone else have another question they wanted to throw out about this weekend's games at all? Because I have more, but just wondering if anyone else had one.
I guess mine's kind of catered toward Baltimore.
That's fine.
Just because they have a lot of – I was looking after the game yesterday. They have a lot of guys that are like on expiring deals on the defense, and then they've got to redo their whole running back room. Dobbins is a free agent.
Let him
Justice
go.
a free agent. Yeah, I think Justice Hill's a free agent. Odell is. Mark Andrews is kind of getting up there in age. I guess my thing is like, where does Baltimore go from here? You've got to kind of retool the defense a little bit. Your top two pass rushers, Van Noy and Clowney, are free agents. So that's kind of what I'm kind of curious about is how do they retool and what do you do to kind of maybe get Lamar Jackson a little bit more help?
So I'll start. I think getting him another difference maker at running back, I always think is helpful. Obviously, the name that was thrown out this year was Saquon. I think that if you're able to get him another guy in the backfield, I think that very much helps. Obviously, a wide receiver there's a lot of number one wide receivers that are going to be out there. Mike Evans, Mike Williams, T. Higgins. There's definitely people in the draft. I think Zay Flowers is very good, but if you compare Zay Flowers with somebody, then for sure. And then Justin Matabuki, you have to sign him. You have to retain him. Absolutely.
Oh.
He is him, Patrick Queen, Roquan Smith, and Kyle Hamilton are your four most important players on your defense right now. And then Marlon Humphrey's in there too. Other than you can work around everything else. As long as you have Kyle Hamilton, who's obviously locked up, Justin Matabuki, second-team All-Pro, Roquan Smith, and Patrick Queen in the middle there, and then obviously having Humphrey on the outside. So from there, I think they're good enough defensively where they can good enough of a team to where they can put in pieces, kind of like how New England can put in pieces. Baltimore's always been a great defensive team since they've been a team. But it'd be getting Lamar, another receiver to pair with Zay Williams, and I'd get him a running back I'd give him a dynamic running back. Maybe you don't even have to fully, because I think remembering Keaton Mitchell's coming back. So the fact that Keaton Mitchell
did play good.
I think if you can get him another kind of duo back there, but really the number one, I think Mike Williams would work well there, big body to go with Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely, featuring him more and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Timmy, you're good.
You guys hear me? Since I got ushered out.
Yes,
we're good.
There's two of you.
Yeah, you don't got it bad, so you're okay.
There we go. There we go. Good pun.
I agree with what Keenan said to an extent.
Now Tim's.
You see, I feel like they might not need to get a receiver, to be honest. Like, Odell definitely had an impact on this offense this year, but if Zay takes the step and Mark Andrews is healthy, and maybe they feature Isaiah Likely with Mark Andrews next year, then maybe you could just roll with those three and be okay. I'm worried about Keaton Mitchell because he did suffer a pretty gruesome knee injury, and it wasn't at the beginning of the season, so he could be missing for the first 3-4 months of the season next year, and that wouldn't surprise me. So getting a running back is definitely going to be top priority. I could see them getting like Derrick Henry or somebody, just sign him on like a cheaper deal if they're trying to go win a ring, and maybe he thinks that's a team that can do it. And then they probably draft defensively because they always seem to get a lot of good defensive players. So their offensive line is great. If they can get one or maybe two free agent running backs to come in, and then with Lamar and that group, they might be okay offensively. And then the defense, I'm not too worried about the defense because even if they lose Clowney and their other pass rusher, they're always a good rushing the passer team. Like they'll make guys that nobody's ever heard of, get to 11 sacks, and if they get a couple of those, then they're fine. So
Keep Kyle Hamilton. That's really all.
Oh,
that matters.
100%. One thing you
Yeah.
said is we didn't really see the Ravens show up to play. Kyle Hamilton showed up to play. He was all over that field. He was the only feature on that defense that actually looked like, deserved to be there and really, putting the team on his back for a good portion of their drives.
Yep. Kyle, what do you think the Ravens need to do next offseason, or in the offseason, I should say?
Ravens, I'm not too worried about because I think they're still going to be okay in the regular season. It's kind of hard to forecast because the AFC North is loaded. The Ravens have not had a clean bill of health the last, let's say 4 seasons. So you'd figure that luck would kind of turn in their favor. It wasn't even a great health season for them this year, and they still were able to be dominant. So if you still got Harbaugh there, you still got Lamar Jackson. Again, I think Lamar's still going to continue to improve. I don't think yesterday is going to necessarily make him get in his psyche to where he's a bad quarterback all around. No, I don't think that's going to happen. I think he's going to continue to grow and improve and maybe eventually get over the hump. But, when you're in the AFC North, a tough division like that, your focus really is just win the division, right? If we can't win the division, get a wild card, they're one of those teams for me. Something drastic. Lamar's got to get injured for them to be out of it, to me. They're always going to be in the mix. Again, aside from yesterday, I think they're extremely well coached. So I'm not too concerned. I would say keep adding to the receiver room. Backs, you can we've seen it time and time again. You can find backs anywhere and get production out of them anywhere. They've got the tight ends. The defense, you'd like them to stay healthy and continue to build on, maybe get a pass rusher or two in the draft or free agency, whatever. So, I would say maybe get, try to build the strength of the defense, right? Keep adding to that front seven, maybe. Get a young defensive back, running backs you can find. But I would say add to the receiver room, make that defense more dangerous because, hey, that's the Ravens' DNA at the end of the day. From Ed Reid, Ray Lewis, that whole group, that's just like Pittsburgh. If they ain't got a good defense, those cities, those teams don't have a good defense, it doesn't really feel right. And once again, yesterday, no smash mouth football from the Ravens. Look what happens. So continue to build on your strengths. I think the running backs, like you said, you guys throw Derrick Henry, Saquon. They'll find somebody no matter what. And I think Derrick Henry's a perfect fit. That would be downright scary if you had Derrick Henry and Lamar in the postseason. But yeah, keep adding receivers for Lamar. Keep getting him weapons. Keep bolstering that defense. They should be good. But you still got to deal with Burrow in Cincinnati, the Steelers and Tomlin, and, if they get a quarterback. And who knows with the Browns. Browns are the biggest wild card to me just in general. And, who knows what that team looks like next year. So just keep building on your strengths if you're the Ravens. Keep building that offense. Keep giving Lamar more help. And I think they'll be okay.
All right, Tim, you're good. You can go. Ask your question.
Oh, for my question?
Ask your question.
All right, I asked Keenan to build me a list. Keenan loves
It's not
this
really
list.
that. It's honestly not really that. Though.
It's really not
the
that
question,
good.
Yes.
The question.
Oh, is this the one in the group chat?
We kind of hinted at it, but I didn't ask it in the group chat. But yeah, I asked Keenan to build me a list about quarterbacks, retired quarterbacks. Keenan, go ahead, read that list.
So do you want me to include Aaron Rodgers or not? I know he's not a retired quarterback. Okay, I'm just
Take
making
him off right now.
No, because we were talking before, and he was talking possibly Rodgers in there because he's right at the end, but he's not. Okay.
So this is the best quarterbacks right now that are retired?
Yeah, that are no longer in the league. Legacy's over.
Tom Brady.
Just if they could suit up and play.
No. Just
all greatest of all time.
Sorry.
Accolades. Oh,
yeah. Greatest quarterbacks of all time list.
Playoffs,
everybody, and you have to be retired to be on the list right now. Yeah, Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Joe Montana, John Elway, Brett Favre. That's the 5 that I have in that order.
My question is, if after this season Patrick Mahomes retired, where would he be?
Well, are we assuming with a Super Bowl win? Because that makes a difference.
You could do both. Give me both. If he wins versus if he loses, because it's still impressive that he's been to this many in this short of a season.
So if he loses, I think it would be a conversation between 4 and 5 with him and another guy named Aaron Rodgers, who we haven't put on this list, who would definitely be in that top 5. If he wins, I would say it'd be a conversation between 3 and 4, or 2, 3, and 4, depending on who you are, and that's the Manning, Montana, the 3Ms, Manning, Montana would be your conversation there. I would personally put him behind Peyton and probably in front of Montana. So he'd be 3.
And then
With a win?
With a win, yes. With a loss, it would be between him and Rodgers, and at the moment, I don't know. It'd probably be him at 4.
yeah, I would take Mahomes with a loss over Rodgers.
I'd probably put so my top 5 would be in order: Brady, Manning, Montana, Mahomes, Rodgers. With a loss, with a win, it'd be Brady, Manning, Mahomes, Montana, Rodgers with a win, and then Elway and Favre would be right after that.
Petty, you want next? Or you want me to go?
I'll go ahead. I definitely take Brady, and I think Peyton Manning and Joe Montana. You can do. I feel like that could be like a 50-50. I guess it just depends on your preference.
Yep.
I think for me, even let's say if you were to win, they beat San Francisco, I'd still have it Brady, Manning, Montana, then Mahomes at 4. Me personally, I'd just like at this point, like I'm not ready to put him over those 3 guys because I think that those are like your top 3 quarterbacks all time, no questions asked. Like if I think of like Mount Rushmore, my quarterbacks at least, those 3 guys are on there. And then I think Mahomes goes to the 4 slot. And then I think it's Elway, Aaron Rodgers, Dan Marino, and then Favre, a couple of other guys on there as well too.
I'm just going to quickly state this. With a win, in my opinion, Mahomes cements himself on the quarterback Mount Rushmore. So if you have 4, I would say he would cement himself on the quarterback Mount Rushmore.
Yeah.
With a win. With a loss, I think that 4th head to me is between him and Rodgers.
I could agree with that. I agree with that. I think because that'll be what, 3 rings for him?
It'd be 3 rings, 4 appearances, 2 MVPs, 6 straight AFC Championship games.
Yeah, so I would, if he wins, I'd give him that 4th spot. I'd feel comfortable. I think he's a 4 regardless for me personally, whether he wins or not.
Fair.
I actually, weirdly, Tim, I did my homework on this like a couple weeks back, and I was
Kyle and I talked about
Keenan
this actually. Yep.
Because I was just curious because I'm like, you don't really hear what people's top 10s actually are that much for quarterbacks, and what I found was really, I mean, there's not really a ton. Like I'll say this for the NBA, 1 through 50, right? 1 through your top 50, you could have a lot of variance, you could have a lot of tiers, right? Top 12 will eventually be around the same. You'll probably have the same 12 or 14 in that mix. But after that, like there's just a lot of great players. Like you take Russell Westbrook, who's got a very decorated career, and he's somewhere like 33, let's say, or maybe even 43, maybe even 50, whatever.
But 33 for me is high. I've just
have
a first.
Whichever.
No, but you're right. Someone may have him.
He's somewhere in the 30s to the 50s, Westbrook, and there's a ton of players.
But I think that's
whichever, whatever. My point being is there's a ton of players with his same level of accolades that are Hall of Famers, first ballot Hall of Famers that have careers similar to Westbrook. And Westbrook was an impact player, MVP. Yep. When you get to the 30s of quarterback, it's kind of dark. Like you could make not dark necessarily, but you could make a case for someone like Romo being a top 33 quarterback.
Lamar's already top 20, like right now, pretty much with 2 MVPs.
Right.
Like he's pretty much already top 20.
Lamar's for sure top 25, and like to go back to Romo's probably not a Hall of Famer. Maybe he is, maybe he isn't. Point is, it's debatable, and he'd be like in your top 50 without a doubt for quarterbacks all time. And probably a lot of your top quarterbacks come from the last 15 years. Point being, what I came to the conclusion with Keenan, I'm like, shit, and you guys probably already know this, whatever, but I'm like, Mahomes is already top 10, like undebatable, like it's got to be top 10, right? Shorten the answer just to go right to the nuts and bolts of it, if he were to win, yes, he would be top 5, right? 3 in 4 years or 3 in general at this young of an age with the ability to put up production, you kind of already got to put him top 5.
Yep.
Whatever. If he lost, he would still just remain top 10 for me. I couldn't still have him ushered in. Just because, I mean, look, I said I don't think that was an impressive win. I don't think that was a Mahomes win necessarily yesterday, right? So I don't have him in that top 5 zone yet. Want to see how that game goes. Want to see, he's got a juggernaut in San Francisco, whether how you feel about their quarterback, whatever, good, bad, otherwise.
It's a better San Francisco team than the first one he faced.
Yeah, and both teams were tough. And, this is a great San Francisco team, a great San Francisco offense. Yeah, if he can beat them, of course, you can put him in the top 5. But he wouldn't really move up or down much to me. It would also depend on how he plays in that Super Bowl, too. So if he were to, throw a couple touchdowns and still lose or dominate and, it was on the defense why they lost, maybe he could move up a couple spots. I don't know. I'd have to, really do the whole deep dive on it. But in general, I would say if he wins, automatic top 5, which puts him in just such rarefied air. You're in the middle of the GOAT debate already. You can really start having that debate at least. If he loses, puts him at 2. And we'd really have to see how the rest of his career goes. We'd have to see what the rest of his prime looks like. Does he stay healthy?
Yeah.
All that. So
all of that.
That's where I'm at.
All the good stuff. Hey, Timmy, now you're good to talk.
I don't got much to say. I just wanted to stir Keenan up, really.
No, you're fine. I'm fine. You just said I'm good. We're good.
If we were only recording before, I agree with you guys. I think with a loss, I think he probably is top 5, just because, even with a loss, they're still almost a dynasty here. Multiple Super Bowls, appearing in 4, is a big deal. So I think it's a big deal. I think, he's pretty much the only reason that this team is successful. Alex Smith couldn't do it with very similar rosters. Obviously, they didn't have Tyreek, but had Kelsey there. And then the same coach. So.
Yeah, Tyreek for like a year or 2. It wasn't Tyreek, but he had the beginnings of Tyreek.
But I think with a win, I'd probably take him over Montana. And I think there's an argument for taking him over Manning, just because at the end of the day, people only really care about Super Bowls and postseason success. And with a win, he's already got more postseason success than Manning. He's got more Super Bowls, more playoff wins in way less games.
Let's be real. You could argue right now he has better postseason success than Peyton Manning.
Yeah, no, he does. He's 13-4, and Manning was 13-14. Like, he's already there. So, I think with a win, you could have that argument, and that's what I was kind of talking to Keenan about earlier. And if you're going to call him the GOAT, then he's obviously above Brady, but Keenan says we got to let his career play out for some reason or whatever.
Way too early for that.
I was saying it last year, and that's when it was way too early. So
if he can get 3 this early in his career and go back to back, much like Brady did, and have better stats than Brady to begin with, like just in the beginning part of the career, you can start having that debate. You can start having that outlook to what it is, right? That you can start doing.
Sure. Cool. Outlook. Keyword.
But I'm saying you can't. There's really no other quarterback.
I'm with you on this, Keenan. I'm with you on this.
I'm just saying you can start having the debate. I'm not. I mean, I know what Brady did. I mean, come on. You're talking to me here. I mean, I know exactly what Tom Brady did, but I agree with you. That's why I was so against people comparing them to Brady and Belichick, even that first run, because they just did so much winning, so much. 13-3, 14-2, 12-4 seasons. Whereas this was a down year. Like, just talking to Chiefs fans yesterday, they were like, I don't know how the fuck we're here. So, I mean, not to go back to the argument, Keenan, but just to bring it up, like, I don't even think Chiefs fans would say yesterday was an impressive win or a top 3 impressive win in that era. But
so I've got quick points that I want to kind of bounce off to make sense. So, first, obviously, the 6 years that Mahomes has played is very comparable to the best 6-year stretch probably in the history of the NFL, which is probably the Patriots 2013 to 2018. Obviously, we're talking quarterbacks. The Patriots during that stretch were 87-25. They were 13-3 in the playoffs. During this stretch, the Chiefs are 89-27. You have to remember there's the 17th game, so there's a couple added games there. and they are now 14-3 during this stretch. Obviously, and also you have to remember the 7th playoff team eliminated a bye a couple of years. The Patriots were the 2 seed. They would have added a game in there if they would have played. So percentage-wise, they're roughly around the same. When you go through wins, when you compare this 6-year stretch to the Brady 6-year stretch, they're very, very comparable as teams are. And then when you go to statistically, they're very comparable as well. During the stretch in the regular season, Mahomes averaged 16 more yards, 6 more touchdowns, but 2 more picks per game on a per season kind of basis. So Mahomes is 296 yards, 37 touchdowns, 10 picks, 66% completion percentage, 103.7 rating over that 6-year stretch. Brady over that 6-year, he has 2 MVPs. Over that 6-year stretch, Brady has 1 MVP, 279 yards, 31 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, 65% completion percentage, and 99 rating. So Mahomes is a tick better during that. In the playoffs, as of right,
Madden rating in there?
No. No, just and then in the playoffs you have Brady, who was overall thrown for 5,230 yards, 31 touchdowns, 12 picks, 64.4% completion percentage, and a 94.5 rating. Mahomes is 4,802 yards, 39 touchdowns, 7 picks, 67.4% completion percentage, and 106 rating. So he's played better interceptions wise than Brady in completion percentage, has less yards, and he's played 1 more game than Brady, would be 2 after the Super Bowl. So that is comparing their stats, and you're right. So if you're going just off of those years, then Mahomes would be a touch better than Tom Brady. The cool part about it is Tom Brady has 4 other Super Bowls, 2 other MVPs, and an entire other career where he has a list of records as long as Wilt Chamberlain's. So that's where when people say Mahomes is already the GOAT, it needs to stop. It needs to calm down, because it's not like, I understand Mahomes can run, but we've seen Tom Brady come back from 28-3. We've seen Brady go against the Legion of Boom, 2 touchdowns in the 4th quarter, 138 yards, I think 12 of 14. We've
comeback versus the Ravens.
We've seen the comeback versus the Ravens. Obviously, they even lost. He threw who has the most yards in the Super Bowl ever throwing. It's Brady. There's just so much there. Brady right now, I think, is 21 touchdowns to 6 or 24 touchdowns to 6 picks in the Super Bowl. I could be quite a little wrong on that, but Mahomes is 5 touchdowns to 4 picks in the Super Bowl. Mahomes hasn't been great in the Super Bowl thus far. Obviously, the first one against the 49ers, 2 touchdowns to 2 picks. Then he had the 0 touchdowns to 1 pick against the Bucs. Last year, he was great against the Eagles, 3 touchdowns to no picks. But Mahomes hasn't been outstanding in every Super Bowl. Brady's been a better Super Bowl performer than Patrick Mahomes up to this point in their career. I just like to let things go on. It's like when we were saying LeBron's the GOAT after the 2013 season. Hey.
Or like when we call yesterday a top 3 most impressive win in the Mahomes era.
Well, Kyle, I'm saying for me it is because they won a game I didn't think they were going to win. That's literally,
he was named off real impressive wins with the Patriots that they actually had to work to win.
Yeah,
and not
that
just lay
was
on the ball in the second half.
That was
play dead.
That was the reason. That was my reasoning behind it, because they won a game I didn't think they were going to at all. You're cute, right. This is not a. This not a top. Okay, then why are we bringing it up again?
I'm just saying. You brought up real games where it was impressive. That's all. I'm just stuck on it.
I don't. Okay, so you're stuck on it. I thought they weren't going to win. They did win, so that's why it's there.
Your only reason is because they won. Not
they played a very good first half. In the second half, the defense played well. I think the Ravens made mistakes, but the defense also did play well. It's not like the Ravens only made mistakes. Lamar threw a bad pass, but he threw it into a coverage where he thought someone was going to be open. They weren't open. Obviously, they forced a fumble on him early in the game. Obviously, they punched the ball out from Zay Flowers. That's still a good play by L'Jarius Sneed there to do that. The defense played well in the second half, and then they played well in the first half. The offense played well in the first half. But if you don't want to think it's a top 3 impressive, that's fine. There's other wins that they have that are impressive. They're 51-31 against Houston, obviously.
I'm just saying that case would not hold up well in the court of law. That's all I'm saying. Okay. I do have a question.
We've seen worse. OJ got off.
I have one after you go, Kyle, as well too.
Okay. All right. Mine's gonna be quick. Actually, it'd probably make more sense for you to go. Go ahead, because mine's more Niners related, and
So
it's kind of an ending question.
mine is also like it just kind of like popped up in my head. Since we're on the whole kick about like your Mount Rushmore kind of guys, where does this put Andy Reid at in terms of the coaching conversation?
That's
Got to
I
be
think he's
Mount
got to be
Rushmore.
top three.
So here's the thing with Andy is I would listen to that conversation with him and Bill more than I would listen to Mahomes and Tom as of right this moment. And the
Andy
reason
did it
being is
because-
when you take away Mahomes, you take away Brady, what their record and things like that have been. Obviously you gave McNabb to Reid, so he's still a very good quarterback. But the NFC Championship games he was in, Super Bowl appearances, the wins without. So it's a very interesting conversation. They're one of the greatest offensive minds of all time. We know Bill Belichick is the greatest defensive mind of all time. So that one's more of an interesting conversation for GOAT thing. I think Reid's Mount Rushmore too.
See, that one's tough for me just because a lot of the great coaches predate both Belichick and Andy Reid.
Yeah, Walsh, Landry,
Don Shula.
So, but Reid with the run he's on, you'd kind of have to put. I don't know about Mount Rushmore. That's hard. And I'm old enough, 32 as of today. So happy birthday to me. That's right. Happy birthday.
Yeah.
Well, I was
Happy
waiting for the end of
birthday.
I was waiting for the end of the pod, but sorry,
No
Kyle.
worries. No worries. No, I wasn't. I wasn't expecting it. Just saying that. I say that to say, I saw a lot of Andy Reid's early career. Granted, I was a kid, and even spanned into my college years, and he had a reputation of just like being a terrible clock manager, a terrible game manager. Could not get over the hump. Like, people did not think he was a good big game coach. So it'd be harder for me to put him in the Belichick conversation just because Belichick was about as good of a clock manager as you could get as a coach, as far as just game planning and all of that. The league's definitely taken a turn in Reid's favor. He's got to be top 5, I would think. I would have to go through it all. It's so tough with, the coaches that have been throughout the league's history. But, you would think he would have to be top 5 with his resume, especially over the course of the last 6 years, or, even just his run in Kansas City with Alex Smith too. Like, he's certainly, yeah, I would think he'd have to be top 5, top 6. And you can really start having arguments if, again, they win this game. But him next to Belichick, that's a little different for me, again, because I've seen what Andy was early in his career and what his reputation was. It's a complete night and day switch. It'd be like if Mike McCarthy all of a sudden just got like 2 more Super Bowl rings, like, in how you talk about it. Andy Reid's game managing has gotten better, but of course, that's partly Mahomes too, because he's, an elite quarterback, and game managing is part of that. So, but he would have to be, if not on the Mount Rushmore, but near it. But again, I'd have to go through the coaches with like Walsh and Shula and all that. So I can't really answer that definitively.
Okay. Timmy, you?
I think you could probably put him on the Mount Rushmore, but I agree with Kyle. It's really hard with a lot of these older coaches just because, a lot of us didn't see those guys coach, so we might not know them off the top of our heads. And, I bet you there's a bunch of old heads that could name you 6 or 7 coaches that they'd take before Andy Reid. So
Probably Vince Lombardi.
I was going to say Lombardi, Landry, Shula, Walsh. There's obviously others too, but I know a lot of people like Parcells. So like,
Parcells
yeah,
is a great one.
Parcells.
Jimmy, I mean, obviously it's 10 years shorter, but Jimmy Johnson. Then if it depends if you're, so yeah. And then obviously we're talking NFL, but too, obviously if you added in all coaches ever,
Coach K.
I would say
Nick Saban.
I was going to say Saban's got to be there. Yeah, obviously
Yeah.
Coach K, for sure. Jim Boeheim and the whole crew. So yeah.
Joe Mazzulla.
Joe Mazzulla, Gino Auriemma and the crew. But yeah.
Gino.
That'd be an interesting topic.
Yeah,
to
it is.
discuss.
That one is. That one's definitely very interesting. So like it's also weird too, just thinking about the Chiefs teams, how like the 3 things you would talk about being in the GOAT conversation are the 3 things you would talk about with Brady, which is quarterback, coach, and tight end. That's just kind of just thinking about that. It's just interesting because like Travis Kelce and Gronk's are conversation. It's going to be Brady and Mahomes are conversation, and soon it will be Reid and Belichick just because of obviously they're the coaches we've seen as of recent. So it's just kind of interesting that that happens to be the iteration we've just moved into from what we were just in.
Two questions. It's really one, just like a two-parter. One, I just want to hear everyone's assessment of the Niners yesterday. I don't think we really broke down that game as much. What's your assessment of them going into the big game? And then I'll have a follow-up to that and we can end on it. But what's just overall assessment of 49ers? If you want to give them a letter grade like we did the Chiefs and their coaching staff and the Ravens and their coaching staff, by all means. But just want to hear where your guys' head's at on the San Francisco 49ers.
Timmy, you go first.
I'm a little bit more confident in them with how they played in the second half. Because the first half letter grade would probably be like a D plus. Some good plays, but getting down that big early is pretty bad. But they battled back. First team to overcome 17-point halftime deficit. And now they're kind of rolling. They figured some stuff out. So maybe they can carry that into the Super Bowl, which is good. I do want to bring up the point that before, I definitely said I had some worries about the 49ers defense, and they kind of showed them in that first half. They got ran all over, and it just seemed like any play that the Lions ran was for a first down or a touchdown. It just seemed like they were just rolling. But they did tighten things up in the second half. So I have more confidence in the Lions offense than the Chiefs. So I think all in all, it'll be a good matchup. I would rather say the Lions kind of gave away this game in a fashion too. But the 49ers definitely played very well and definitely deserved to win this game. And Brock Purdy looked pretty good. Kind of stepped out of that game management kind of QB that we see him be, and he picked up a lot of clutch first downs with his legs at the end there, and that was really good to see. Something that we don't really see from Brock Purdy. So.
How about you, Branndon?
Yeah, I think I agree with Tim. It's like a tale of two halves. The first half, I'd give them probably a D to an F, and then the second half, I'd give them probably an A. They came out, opening drive, they got a field goal, and from there, it was kind of just balls to the wall. The defense, Steve Wilkes came out, and they made some good adjustments on defense. I think they started playing a little bit of man coverage, which they typically don't do. Started keying the run a little bit more, playing the run a little bit better. So I think the defense came out. It's pretty good. Chase Young was terrible. He was loafing so much. I saw plays that he was like taking off in the first and second half. It's terrible. And then Brock Purdy, aside from like the pure luck of the 50-yarder Branndon Ayuk catch, with him using his legs, moving the pocket a little bit, and there was, a couple throws where he's, scrambling to the left and just hitting guys on the sidelines. And I was impressed with Brock Purdy. I was really impressed with him. The fact that he was able to orchestrate a win in that matter, down 17 against a very good Detroit Lions team, and you can come back from that and win the game. Pretty impressive. So I agree with Tim. I definitely feel a little bit better about the Niners going into the Super Bowl matchup.
B to B plus would be how I feel about grade wise. I think they're D to F-ish territory in the first half. Obviously they had to turn Brock Purdy through the pick. Offensively, they really couldn't get anything going. The Lions did whatever they wanted to offensively in the first half. Second half, I think the offense played great. I think the defense played pretty to very good. I think there were some drops on the Lions end. Josh Reynolds had a big one on a third down that kind of stalled a drive. He had a big one on a fourth down that a little bit outside down and away, but again, a catch that you've got to make. They had some good disguises, some good plays. Obviously, there were some fourth downs where they could have kicked field goals, so there could have been 6 added points to that total already. I thought they mismanaged the end of the clock a little bit there too, so not as like egregious as the Ravens game for me, but I do think it's a game that the Lions also had to hand in losing rather than just the 49ers taking it from them. So I don't have it as a full, I have it probably B to B plus-ish game from the 49ers overall. Definitely resilient. Team-wise, I feel pretty much the same as I did going into this game. The only thing that might be a touch I feel better about is that if they face adversity, they've seen it before now. They've seen it multiple times against different adversaries. So if they see adversity against the Chiefs, Chiefs get up on you early, big. They're in better situations and they know how to handle it more. But otherwise, the defense still can be. Defense is not getting home much. Chase Young, Nick Bosa haven't been getting home all that much. If you give Mahomes time, regardless, of the weapons, at some point you can't cover for 8 seconds, 7 seconds, 5 seconds. Obviously, you got to get home at some point. So that could be problematic. Pacheco's a very good running back, and you can run on this 49ers defense. We've seen that with Gibbs, Montgomery, Aaron Jones, James Conner towards the end of the season. So Pacheco could be in line doing that there. So B plus, I feel about pretty much the same going into the Super Bowl as I would have as I did this week.
Fun fact about Brock Purdy and his rushing. At one point on FanDuel, you could have live bet him. His over-under for rushing yards in the second half at one point in the third quarter was 0.5. So all he needed was 1 yard, and he smashed that, obviously. But I thought that was funny.
Yeah,
But to do with the Lions in this game, I agree with you. They did kind of piss it away. But first of all, they severely outplayed the Niners in the first half, right?
Yep.
Obviously.
Absolutely.
But I didn't feel as terrible about the Niners just because like that interception Purdy had, that was like a weird like high five kind of play. Like it was a good play on the Lions' part. It wasn't like a bad Purdy interception. And the fact that they were getting the ball back in the second half, I kind of just knew the Niners were going to go on a run. Or at least I felt that way. Dan Campbell actually said as much in his post-game press conference that they knew the Niners were going to make a run. So that game, the second half played out pretty much how I thought as far as it being tight. Obviously not all the wildness that ensued with the fourth down calls, with the Ayuk play. But that Lions, like that first half, I was shocked at how great the Lions looked. I mean, they every bit looked the part of a Super Bowl team. Like y'all said, Niners could not stop them, whether it was the run game, whether it was Goff dropping back, looking like goddamn Tom Brady in the pocket at times. Like, they were just unstoppable. And then, like Branndon said, Niners kind of made adjustments in the second half. Defense was able to make some plays. I was saying this to Keenan on Live Take as well last night. Shouts to Live Take. The NFC Championship next to the AFC Championship, it was like night and day to me. It seemed like JV football in the AFC Championship game to varsity football in the NFC Championship game. So, yeah, I mean, my opinion hasn't changed too much on the Niners going into this game. Sounds like I'm favoring the Niners quite a bit. I definitely am. Again, my opinion might change over the course of 2 weeks, but right now I definitely favor the Niners. I definitely like how that offense looks and will continue to look. I can't see the Kansas City defense necessarily putting the shackles on them. Who knows? I don't know if it'll be necessarily a shootout either. But their DC Spagnuolo, this will be his 5th Super Bowl, I believe. They threw up that stat yesterday, or I don't know if he's been in 5 going into a 6 or what, but it'll either be 5 or 6. So that's an advantage if you're the Chiefs. So I don't know. I do favor the Niners. And that was really, you guys all kind of answered it. What your forecast of 2 weeks from now, the big game would be at this point. You guys all kind of answered it in your question. But if you want to elaborate on that, feel free. But yeah, I'm favoring the Niners right now. I think the Chiefs are going to have a tough time with that offense, is how I feel about it as of this Monday. But
one thing I do want to elaborate on is not exactly that, but it is Brock Purdy. I mentioned this, shout out to Live Take again, but I mentioned this on Live Take last night when we were going through, and it was in the second half of each game, we had the Chiefs up, and then we had the Lions up. They're obviously the two people we felt were under the most pressure was Lamar Jackson and Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy showed up in that second half, and he made all the plays that he needed to win. Obviously, the defense made some plays. The Lions didn't make some plays. But as we've clearly stated here, Lamar Jackson did not make all of those plays. He got hindered by a couple stupid plays from like Zay Flowers or whomever else on Todd Monken, if we want to go to that too, some of the play calling. But Lamar overall didn't make the plays that he needed. And the defense really made the plays that they needed because of the fact that they were able to hold the Mahomes to not really doing a whole lot in that second half. So I do want to shout out Brock Purdy because I know he gets a lot of flack and a lot of criticism for, what can he do in the big game? What can he do if he doesn't have Debo? What can he do if he's down in situations? And over the last couple of weeks, even if he wasn't great against the Packers, he still made plays to win. And this time he was very good. So I just wanted to give credit to Brock Purdy there. He definitely played and definitely showed.
Sure.
Yeah, and definitely showed that he deserves to be a firm starting quarterback in this league, a firm top 15 quarterback in this league, and we should think of him as that moving forward.
Absolutely. Any more thoughts on the Lions and Niners?
No, that was really my takeaways was that the Lions were kind of gave it away, but Brock Purdy, 49ers did actually reach their hand out for the baton. So they actually tried to take it.
Well, hey, we got to get out of here. We started late. For once, it wasn't my fault. I was late. I was the culprit, but for once, it wasn't just me just running late. I actually had a reason this time. So thank you, Tim and Branndon, for joining us.
Happy birthday, Kyle.
Appreciate y'all.
Happy birthday.
Whoa,
Old man, getting up there.
Hey.
I would say let's do birth. Yeah, right. I would say let's do some birthday shots, but I know y'all got to get to bed and such. Maybe we'll take a birthday shot after recording. Yo necesita agua.
Man.
But hey, catch me and Keenan on live take. We will be reacting probably to the NBA this week. We did an AFC and NFC postseason reaction yesterday. So catch us throughout the playoffs with the NFL. Catch us reacting to more NBA on there, and who knows, maybe some historic NBA and NFL debates. Seems how we got that going. Catch us on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Warner Brothas Podcast.
Historic NBA debates for days.
For sure. Petty, Timmy Garoppolo, once again, thank you very much. Keenan, I will see you Thursday. Warner Brothas Podcast, we're out of here.
Like a man.